turnkey system is nothing but, you know, a complete package that you buy from a particular vendor. Um, it's not just a particular hardware and software and support services into one, but more often than not, this also includes the actual project team that will be involved in implementing, carrying out this project. And there's always there's no, you know, clear-cut guideline which one is better. There's always some advantages and disadvantages of either building or buying one. I'm not going to bore you with reading this stuff. You can read this. You know how to read in English. um, so what are the different tools now that you've known the sequential steps, the three phases that gets embedded in all of those 9 sequential steps? What are the different tools that you have to master? Project Charter is a documentation that contains, you know, Project Charter is a documentation that contains merely everything that needs to be done with regards to the project. So it starts off with defining what is the schedule. Okay, I think there's an example here. So the Project Charter addresses what is the objective of the project. If we're talking about putting in place a financial system, what is the objective? The end objective is to put in place an accurate process in order to determine the balance sheet statement, the income sheet statement, and the financial status of the company. That could be a potential objective of project. What is the scope? Will it include, if it is a financial system package, will it include just the ledger portion of the financial system, or will it include the accounts payable and or the accounts receivable portion? Why are they not going to be included? Okay, so forth and so on. So what will be the actual methodology that the project team is going to use? Are they going to use a PMP methodology? And if so, what are the steps? Who would be the participants in this project, both the consultant and the actual end user that's going to use the project? What will be their roles and their deliverables? Each participant identified the roles and the actual deliverable by which each participant is going to deliver, and at specific time. So it's going to also discuss the different the actual timeline of the project, and this is where MS Project would really handily come in. What will be the milestone? Milestones are basically major accomplishments within the project. Like for instance, if we're talking about putting in place a financial system package, we're talking about when are we going to buy the hardware resources? When are we going to be able to install the software? When are we be able to finish the modification of the configuration of the software to attune to the business requirement of the company? When will the user get trained? When will the actual system gets implemented? And when is the cut over to production? So those are significant milestones that would be explicitly highlighted on the project timeline. How will the success be measured? Will it be measured in terms of the feedback of the user after the fact, after they've used it? Or is it after a year after the system gets implemented, whether the end users and the business users themselves agree to what the system is churning out? So Project Charter is a documentation that is drafted by the project manager, and it takes time for this documentation to be developed. And once it is developed, this form part of the terms of reference, or the Bible of the entire project team, because this document will entail, it's like a script in an opera, it's like a script in a production movie. This actually will contain everything that needs to be understood on how the project and when and where the project is going to be carried out. There's an example template that was presented here, but I'm going to upload in the Blackboard an actual project charter. Needless to say, defining a project charter is 50% of the job of a project manager. Once a project manager came up with a very good project charter, that project charter, that documentation needs to be sent to the project sponsor and the key participants to the project for their review. If they said yes, we're willing accomplices to this strategy, to this timeline, then they're going to affix their signature in this project charter, and then the project charter gets to be carved in stone, meaning that that would now become their Bible. That's basically what they're going to do, how they're going to work, the manner of reporting that they're going to use, the extent to which they need to deliver on a particular task would all be documented here and needs to be followed to the hill. So this project charter, I would say, is something that if you're a non-project manager position person, you would have a hard time defining or drafting one. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload to the Blackboard a sample project charter that I myself did in one of the telecommunications company in the Y2K project. So you would have a feel of what it looks like, and if the opportunity presents itself for you guys, maybe you can draft your own by simply changing bits and pieces of the project charter that I will be giving you. And normally project charter is not like this that is shown in the slide here. It's more than 20 or 30, 50, depending on the scope of the project. I was able to draft a terms of reference at one time in my life that is more than 100 pages long. So it really depends on the scope. Cost benefit analysis, I've already discussed that to you previously. Acquisition costs and operating costs are the nomenclatures used by the author to refer to recurring non-recurring costs, which is the acquisition cost, and the recurring cost that is the cost that is associated with making sure that the operation gets implemented every month or every week or every year. Okay, so that's the operating cost. So in my nomenclature, acquisition cost refers to non-recurring costs. These are the investment requirement, and the operating cost is the non-recurring cost that I was referring to you about. And we've got here the two types of benefits as well, both intangible and tangible benefits. These are the different types of costs and benefits that you have to consider when computing and plotting your graph. I'm not going to go through that. You know how to read that already. These are the different data collection instruments, and depending on your role in the project team, if you are a database administrator in the project team, you have a major requirement of collecting all of the input forms and the output forms, because these forms would form part of your normalization step. And if you're not familiar with the normalization is a process that the database administrators takes into form by collecting all of the forms, both input and output forms that are present in the current system, and they do a normalization process. They do a three-step process called first step is the partial dependency. Second step is the the first step is the recurring dependency. The second one is the partial dependency, and the third one is the transitive dependency. And all of these steps leads to making the database. That's all there is to it. A database administrator doesn't just design a database from out of nowhere or from thin air. They do follow a scientific step, and that step is called the normalization step. And the normalization step, the output of which is the database structure, the input of which are the forms. Okay? I'm not going to go through each one of them very specifically. Documentations, logs, interview questionnaire. These are the tools that you have to get familiar with and eventually will be using. Flow charts, IPO charts. Here's an example of an input process output chart. All of which basically aims to just highlight or model the current process. And so after modeling the current process, you would have an idea on where the problem lies, and you can come up with a solution that pinpoints and isolate that problem. Prototyping software is a process that is used by programmers and developers. I don't expect network admins like you to actually be very specific on this one, but prototyping is basically a way for you to develop a program from scratch, and you try to prototype it based on the current workload or the current process. So let's say if a process is all about automating the financial process of the company, and you don't want to buy a system, let's say from SAP or Oracle, you want to build your own because you have an enormous pool of talent with regards to developers and database administrators. So if the developers eventually came up with, okay, in order for us to come up with that program, the financial system will need 4 modules. Okay, one module would be the ledger, the second module would be the accounts payable, the third module could be accounts payable, the fourth module would be the inventory system. they're going to develop it not simultaneously but one by one. So they're going to start with the ledger, which is module 1, and once they develop ledger module 1, which is the ledger, they're going to test it, they're going to let the user use it, and when the user is okay and comfortable with the accuracy of the result that is churning out, then that's the time they're going to develop module 2, which is accounts payable. And they follow the same process. They're going to test it again, they're going to let the user experience it. If the experience on the field is very positive, then they're moving on to the third and fourth and so forth modules. And that's basically prototyping. It's a quick and effective methodology for the user to actually experience what the system is going to look like, you know, by showing them bits and pieces as the product gets programmed. We're not going to touch on managing a user support